Hi there. We are working on my first sweater class, and I just wanted to demonstrate to you how to pick up stitches and start knitting the sleeves. So as you can see here, I've got the neck and the yoke done, and I've done one of the sleeves. So we're going to start the second sleeve. The first sleeve is done exactly the same way. Okay. If you hear some funny springy noise, please forgive me. I have a light set up, and every once in a while you might hear a spring. I'm sorry for the background noise. Okay, what we have here then are sleeves. Stitches are on hold. They've been placed on this long cable, and I've got the cable attached to some needles. You don't have to have them attached to needles, but I think it's easier if you do. If you don't have these attached to needles, you want to slip these onto your needle before you start. But this way you're just ready to knit. This is the size 10.5, or the size that we're using for the main gauge. Okay, as you recall, the pattern instructed to do a certain number of cast-on stitches when we divided for the sleeves. And in my case, it's a size 3, and so I have 6 cast-on stitches. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to knit those and pick up stitches each time we knit, and I'll show you how to do that. One thing that I like to do is avoid holes in my underarms. They can be fixed if you do end up with holes, but it's nice to be able to avoid them, or at least minimize the holes. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's very simple. You have your first cast on stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one, our first cast on stitch. This is a stitch, or a spot in between the stitches of the sleeve and the cast on. Right here, we're going to pick these up and make a stitch. That will give us 1 extra stitch, but I'm going to show you at the end how to take care of that. So what we do is slip our needle in between. You probably can see you're picking up 2 legs. I'm going to just widen this out. 2 legs. That makes for a sturdier pickup. Take your yarn, leave about a 6-inch or so tail, make a loop and place it underneath the needle, and then you're going to just pull that stitch through like that. I'll show you again. Needle under, 2 legs. Kind of hard to see with this yarn, but there are 2 legs there. Slip that working yarn underneath and pull it through, and you've got 1 stitch. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to start with our first stitch here. This is our first cast on stitch. Don't use the tail, but use the yarn attached to the ball. I like to pick up 2 legs again of the cast on. Again, it just makes for a sturdier stitch, and you don't have as big a hole. Don't pull too hard, or you will pull this all the way out. Okay, working yarn. Again, we're going to push this through underneath the 2 stitches and knit it. Pull that loop through. So remember, this is the new stitch we made. This is the first stitch of the cast on. Do the same here. Put your yarn through, wrap it, and knit it through. You can do this if you're if you keep your yarn in your left hand. It's the same thing. Pull it through. Now you've got 3 stitches plus 1. You've got 3 stitches left to go, so that means you're in the middle of the cast on. The pattern says to place a marker, and I just like a simple little marker. Nothing fancy. I don't want it to get in the way of my knitting. I don't want my yarn to get around. I mean, the cute little stitch markers are a lot of fun and they're pretty, but they get in my way, so I just use something simple and inexpensive. Okay, now we're going to do the last 3. I'll do it 1, 2, and I'll do the last one throwing. This one's kind of elongated. It's because I've been working with it, but there's 3. So we've got the new stitch, 3 and 3. Now we're going to make one more new stitch. So we're going to go through the hole, the space right here. Include this little leg. I like to include this leg and this leg. Kind of hold it a little bit with your left hand. Pull it through and pull it a little bit tight. So you can see it can be kind of loose, and this one's kind of loose too. So if you pull it a little bit tighter, I think we might still have a little hole, but we're going to try to fix that. And if we do, it's all right. We can correct it later. Now we've picked up our 6 cast on stitches, and we filled a gap by picking up 2 stitches on each end, 1 stitch on each end. Now we're just going to knit. So you're just going to, kind of pull this a little bit, and it reduces the gap a little bit. You can kind of see how that's reducing that gap. You don't want to strangle it, but you don't want to make it too tight or too loose. And then on your second stitch, pull again. There's still some slack in there. So really on your second stitch, pull it again, and you've got a nice tight join. From here on out, we are just going to knit around. Knit around. I'm going at my speed, which isn't really all that fast, but it's probably faster than most beginners. So if you need to pause the tape or the video, feel free, and then just catch up when you get ready. So we're knitting around. I'm using the needle for the main needle that creates the right gauge we want. This is a size 10.5. And I'm using ChiaoGoo needles. They're stainless steel. You could also get them in wood. I love my ChiaoGoo needles. I have a very nice interchangeable set that I got from Yarn Bar, and I love them. I like the stainless steel because the yarn just kind of slides off, which is easy for me. It's nice for me. If you're a beginner and that's a problem for you, wood is really nice. It's a little bit slower for me, but it also holds the stitches better, and they don't slip off as easily. The other thing I really love is this yarn. This is a Jupiter Moon, is it coming right? Beatrix, and I love it because it's fluffy, and but not so much so that it gets in the way. Like sometimes when you knit with a silk mohair blend, it kind of tangles and sheds a little bit. This doesn't. It's got 54% extra fine merino, 30% angora, which comes from a little bunny, and then 16% nylon. That gives it some stability. I love this yarn. The nice thing about this yarn is it's light and airy, and it's not too heavy. When you get a bulky yarn, sometimes it can be heavy, and it doesn't drape as well. I like this yarn because it's very light and airy. And you can see the fabric is just, I think, just right for a bulky weight sweater. It's not too tight and it's not too big. Just right. It's a Goldilocks yarn. Okay, so we're coming toward the end. Knitting, knitting, knitting. Are we coming? Yes, we are coming toward the end. Okay. We're going to knit until we have one more stitch right here. This is our beginning. Just a bit so you can see what I'm doing. This is where we started. This is the first stitch that we made. Okay, I'm gonna go in. Sorry. Let's get this just right so you can see. This is the first cast on, second, third. That's where we picked up. This is the stitch we made, the extra stitch. Oops, I dropped a stitch. I'm gonna pick it up. It's a little freebie for you. It happens to me all the time. Okay. So you can see this stitch is knitted, this one has not been knitted. We're going to slip it onto the end of that needle so that the first stitch that we created and the last stitch of the sweater are on the same needle. And we are going to make a left leaning decrease on this so that I like my decreases to point toward the center. So this first one will be a left leaning decrease. The way you do that, it's called a slip slip knit. You may have had this in other classes, but I'm going to show you here. You take as if to knit, you slip it, take the next stitch and slip it, and they're both on that right hand needle right now. We're going to place them back onto the left hand needle, and then we're going to knit them through the back loop, just like that. I messed up. Back loop, there we go. I'm going to show you that again. Take those out. Here's our first stitch that we created and the last stitch on the sweater. You can see it's not knit yet. So we're going to make sure that it is on our left hand needle and it's not twisted. And we're going to decrease by making a left leaning decrease. Slip as if to knit. Slip as if to knit. Place both of those back onto the left hand needle and then knit them through the back loop, just like that. Don't fiddle too much with this. We can tighten it up at the end. Right now I just want to make sure that I don't lose any stitches. Okay, here we are then with our first cast on stitch that we picked up. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, slip our marker just like that, knit 3 more, 1, 2, 3. Now you see we have the first stitch that we created on this side. It's actually the 8th stitch, and the next stitch on our sweater right here. This time I want to make a right leaning decrease because I want these decreases to match. You can see how this is a left-handed decrease, and it decreases and slants toward the center or the left. I want to make this a right. This is an easy one. You just knit the two together. Gather my stitches. So I'm going to insert my needle through both of those stitches, just like that. My right hand needle goes underneath and up through both. Wrap around, knit through. I'm going to show you how to do that when you've got your left hand yarn in your left hand. Put your needle up through, wrap your yarn around, and pull it through. There you've made your right leaning decrease by knitting two together. It's a knit two together. Now this is not in the pattern. This is just a technique that I like to use to make sure that I don't have holes under my arms. That looks pretty good. We might have a slight hole there, but if we do, we can fix it at the end. And now you're just ready to go. You're just going to knit all the way down to the ribbing, which is 15 inches. Now, if you're interested in some modifications, we've talked about that in class. You can do your decreases along the inside, or the inner arm, which is here. That's why we put the marker there. Okay, so that is how you pick up those stitches, those cast on stitches, and start working the sleeve. I hope that was helpful.